In 1986, Tom Hawks was 39 years old, a broad-shouldered, mustached father of two teenage boys, recently divorced and quietly adjusting to the unfamiliar shape of life as a single parent. That summer, he and his sons were wandering through a neighborhood chili cook-off in Newport Beach, California. The air smelled of spice and smoke. Laughter drifted over folding tables and paper banners snapping in the coastal breeze. And that's when Tom saw her. Across the lawn, beyond the crowd and the rows of crockpots, stood a woman he had never seen before. She was striking, effortlessly beautiful in a way that made the world around her blur. Tom looked once, then twice, and then he didn't stop looking. He stared just a little too long, long enough that she felt it. She glanced up, caught him mid-gaze, and instead of looking offended, she smiled. A small, surprised smile. A blush. Then she looked away. Tom felt his face burn. Great, he thought, caught staring like a teenager. For a split second, he considered pretending nothing had happened. But Tom Hawks was not the type to shrink away. So he straightened his shoulders, adjusted his posture, and decided if he was going to stare, he was at least going to introduce himself. He crossed the grass with long, confident strides. Up close, she was even more radiant. "I'm Tom," he said. She smiled again. Jackie. Quote. She was 29, single, warm, easy to talk to. And from that moment forward, something clicked. What began as conversation turned into laughter. What began as laughter turned into late nights and shared plans. And within a few short years, in 1989, Tom and Jackie stood in front of 150 friends and family members and promised each other forever. Jackie moved into Tom's home with his two boys. Their biological mother was still alive, still part of their world, but over time, something natural happened. The boys began calling Jackie Mom. Not because they were told to. Not because they had to. But because it felt right. Jackie poured herself into motherhood with a devotion that stunned everyone around her. She was patient, affectionate, steady. She showed up to school events. She cooked dinners. She listened. There was a reason for that depth. When Jackie was just 22 years old, she had been in a horrific motorcycle accident. The crash left her with severe internal injuries. Injuries that took away her ability to have children, something she had always dreamed of. So when she stepped into the lives of Tom's sons, she didn't treat it as second best. She treated it as everything. Years passed. The boys grew into men. And in 2002, one by one, they left home. For Tom and Jackie, the silence was jarring. No more footsteps down the hallway. No more late-night refrigerator raids. No more backpacks slung across chairs. They were empty nesters. It was bittersweet the yacht was theirs. Docked in Newport Beach. Rocking gently with the tide. A little weathered, a little worn. But theirs. Tom and Jackie moved everything aboard. Clothes. Photographs. Kitchenware. Memories. They weren't just transferring belongings. They were transferring their lives. Because this wasn't a vacation boat. This was home. And once everything was on board, they got to work. They scrubbed every surface. Polished every railing. Reorganized every cabinet. Within their limited budget, they upgraded what they could. New fixtures here, repaired panels there. Fresh paint where it mattered most. By summer, the transformation was complete. The yacht wasn't flashy, but it was beautiful. Cozy. Personal. Every corner carried their touch. You could feel Tom's meticulous precision in the lines and hardware. You could see Jackie's warmth in the decor, the small details that made the space feel alive. It wasn't just a vessel. It was a floating life. And for the next 2 years, they lived exactly the way they had imagined. They sailed the California coastline. Drifted down into Mexico. Watched the sun dissolve into the Pacific night after night. They fished. They laughed. They mixed cocktails at dusk. And listened to the quiet slap of water against the hull. They were retired. They were free. They were happy. Then, in 2004, everything shifted. One of their sons called with news. He was going to be a father. The first grandchild. Tom was thrilled. But Jackie was overwhelmed. Because of the motorcycle accident when she was 22, the injuries that had stolen Her ability to have children, that loss had never fully disappeared. And now, suddenly, she had another chance to pour herself into that role again. To hold a baby. To nurture. To love. The ocean was beautiful, but family was closer to the heart. So even though they adored life aboard well-deserved, they made a decision. They would sell the yacht. In November of that year, they placed an ad in a fishing magazine, asking around $500,000. Almost immediately, a young couple came forward with cash saved and ready. The deal moved quickly. Tom and Jackie were ecstatic. They called their sons and told them the good news. The sale would be finalized within days. After that, they'd begin looking for a house, possibly near the Arizona border, maybe even Mexico, somewhere close to their growing family. The sons waited for the follow-up call. It never came. A couple of days passed. No update. No answers to phone calls. Tom and Jackie were not the type to disappear. They were consistent, present, family-oriented. Silence was not normal. When Tom's brother Jim, a retired police chief, heard about the sudden lack of contact, something in his gut tightened. He didn't wait. He got in his car and drove to Newport Beach. Maybe the sale hadn't gone through. Maybe Tom and Jackie were still aboard the yacht. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Jim and a friend made their way down the dock, stepping onto the floating platform where well-deserved sat. From the outside, it looked empty. No movement. No voices. But then Jim noticed something. Loose lines hanging over the side of the boat. Careless, unstowed. Tom would never leave lines like that. Ever. Then he saw tarps removed from control panels and not properly replaced. Not Tom. Not Jackie. Dirty towels hung awkwardly from a porthole. Sloppy. Uncharacteristic. The boat felt wrong. The only explanation that made sense was that the new owners must already have taken possession, and the disorder belonged to them. Jim pulled out his business card, scribbled a note on the back. My brother and his wife sold this boat to you. They are missing. Please call me immediately. He left it aboard. Then he and his friend walked away from the dock. They hadn't even left the marina when Jim's phone rang. He answered. Hi, my name is Jennifer DeLeon. Quote. She was 21 years old. She explained she had found his business card on her yacht. Yes, she and her husband had purchased well-deserved from Tom and Jackie. But she sounded concerned. Because they, too, were trying to get in touch with them. After taking ownership, Jennifer said, they had realized there were controls on the yacht. They didn't understand. They needed Tom to explain a few systems. Also, they had found personal belongings, items left behind in drawers, that clearly belonged to Tom and Jackie. They wanted to return them. But they couldn't reach them. Jim's tone sharpened slightly. When was the last time you saw my brother? Jennifer replied calmly. They had seen Tom and Jackie when the sale was finalized. They handed over the money, watched Tom and Jackie get into their car and drive away. That was it. Jim asked where they might have been headed. Jennifer said they didn't know much personally. Most conversations had been business related. But Tom had mentioned buying a house in Mexico near the Arizona border, close to their son, who was expecting a baby. Jim thanked her, told her if she heard from them, to call immediately. She responded the same way. They hung up, and Jim stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Something was wrong. Then he remembered something important. For the past couple of years, while Tom and Jackie had been living at sea, they had hired a woman named Patricia. Because internet access was unreliable on the water, Patricia handled their bills, making sure payments were sent, accounts were current, everything stayed in order. If Tom and Jackie had truly driven off to start a new life, Patricia would know. And if they hadn't, Patricia might be the first sign that something had gone terribly wrong. Patricia had been more than an assistant. She had been their lifeline to the mainland. While Tom and Jackie floated between horizons, where internet signals faded and bills did not, Patricia, friend, confidant, quiet guardian of order, paid their taxes, balanced their accounts, made sure the machinery of ordinary life kept turning. So Jim found her number. And he called. His voice was steady, but tight. Have you spoken to Tom or Jackie recently? A pause. No, Patricia said. I haven't. Quote. Jim explained everything. The sale. The silence. The missing phone calls. Then he asked the question that mattered most. Have they made a deposit? Nearly $500,000 should have landed in one of their accounts just days earlier. That kind of money leaves a footprint. It announces itself. Patricia checked. Keys clicking. Screens loading. No, she finally said. There's been no deposit. Nothing unusual at all. Quote. Silence filled the space between them. Because there was no logical reason. None. That Tom and Jackie would sell their home. Take $500,000 in cash, and not put it into the bank. They were disciplined, careful, structured. They had saved for years to buy that boat. They would never be careless with money. When Jim hung up, the bad feeling in his gut hardened into something colder. Something heavier. He called the Newport Beach Police Department and officially reported Tom and Jackie missing. And now it was real. The first move police made was simple. Look at the buyers. The DeLeons. When they pulled records on the 25-year-old husband, Skyler DeLeon, what they found immediately shifted the tone of the investigation. He was a convicted felon. Armed robbery. Prison time. That doesn't make someone guilty. But it makes investigators pay attention. Because Skyler and his wife were the last confirmed people to see Tom and Jackie alive. Detectives headed down to the marina. They stepped onto the floating dock and approached well-deserved once again. From the outside, the yacht sat still, quiet, almost innocent in the sunlight. No visible movement. No sound. The detective leaned toward one of the windows, scanning the interior. And then, there, inside the boat, on a surface near the window, it looked like a bloody handprint. Dark, rust-colored, distinct. That was enough. Within hours, officers were swarming the yacht. Cameras flashing. Evidence bags ready. Every compartment opened. Every cushion lifted. Every surface examined. But under closer inspection, the blood wasn't blood at all. It was rust. And beyond that, nothing. No obvious signs of struggle. No clear forensic breakthrough. The lead they thought they had dissolved. Frustration mounted. With little physical evidence to guide them, detectives turned back to the DeLeons. They contacted Skyler. Come in. We need a statement. Quote. He agreed immediately. At the station, Skyler was calm. Cooperative. Almost eager to explain. He told them he'd seen the ad in a fishing magazine. A yacht for sale. He contacted Tom Hawk and arranged to meet. They conducted a sea trial. A test drive on the water. During that trial, Skyler said, he decided he liked the boat. He wanted it. So the sale moved forward. On November 15th, he arrived at the dock's parking lot with his pregnant wife, Jennifer. Their young daughter, a notary, and a friend who was there simply as a witness. It sounded procedural, clean, orderly. Money exchanged. Papers signed. Tom and Jackie drove away. That was his story. And on the surface, it held together. But underneath it all, there was still one question echoing louder than the rest. If they drove away with nearly $500,000, why didn't a single dollar ever touch their bank account? And where were they now? The parking lot sat only steps from the dock. Salt in the air. Gulls circling overhead. The yacht rocking gently behind them as if none of this concerned it. Skyler said Tom and Jackie arrived in their SUV right on time. He said everything unfolded plainly, almost boringly. The DeLeons handed over a suitcase. Inside it, cash. Thick bundles. Hundreds stacked tight. Tom took it. The notary stood nearby as signatures were placed on official documents. Ink on paper. Ownership transferred. The yacht legally no longer theirs. And then, according to Skyler, Tom and Jackie closed the trunk, climbed into their SUV, and drove away. Toward Mexico. Toward their next chapter. That was the story. But then detectives asked the question that had been hovering in the room from the very beginning. How does a 25-year-old afford a $500,000 yacht? Skyler didn't hesitate at first. He told them that back in the 1990s he had been a child actor, an extra on the popular TV series Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He said he'd made good money, saved it, invested it carefully. It sounded rehearsed. Then, mid-sentence, he stopped. Shifted in his chair. You know what? That's not true. Quote. The room went still. The money wasn't from acting, he said. I stole it. Quote. He admitted that years earlier, the armed robbery conviction on his record stemmed from stealing money from a drug kingpin. Before his arrest, he had hidden the cash. After serving his time and getting out of prison, he returned to that hiding place. The money was still there. But it was dirty, hot, dangerous to spend openly, so he needed to clean it. Buying the yacht in bulk cash, he explained, was the plan. Convert dirty money into a tangible asset. Then later resell the yacht and receive clean, legitimate funds in return. Money laundering. He had just confessed to it. Detectives exchanged glances. It was brazen, almost unbelievable. And yet, in a strange twist, they decided not to charge him, at least not then. He was cooperating, talking, offering details. They needed information more than they needed an immediate arrest. So they let him walk. Next came Jennifer. Then the notary. Then the friend who had been present as a witness. Each interview covered the same ground. Yes, they saw Tom and Jackie. Yes, they saw the suitcase full of cash handed over. Yes, paperwork was signed. Yes, the Hawks drove away. Their accounts aligned. Almost perfectly. Almost. The only inconsistency lay in something subtle. Behavior. Skyler described Tom as anxious. Nervous about carrying so much cash. Paranoid, even. But the notary disagreed. Honestly, they seemed completely normal. Quote. Calm. Ordinary. Like two people finishing a transaction. No panic. No fear. After those interviews, investigators felt the weight of a dead end pressing in on them. No bodies. No crime scene. No physical evidence. Just a suitcase full of cash that had never touched a bank account, and two people who had vanished into thin air. So police turned to the public. They asked local media to broadcast a bulletin. Photographs of Tom and Jackie. A picture of their SUV. A simple plea. If you've seen them, call. Within days of that bulletin airing, the phones began to ring. And suddenly, the silence around their disappearance didn't feel so empty anymore. The call came from Mexico. An older couple. Retired. Observant, the kind of neighbors who notice unfamiliar vehicles. Contacted authorities with a simple message. The SUV you showed on television. It's parked across the street from our house. Right now. Quote. The vehicle matched the description of Tom and Jackie's SUV. Immediately, Mexican authorities coordinated with American investigators. Patrol units moved fast. The address was surrounded. Officers approached carefully, expecting, hoping, to find the Hawks inside. Maybe confused. Maybe hiding. Maybe alive. They knocked. The door opened. A man stood there, unknown to law enforcement. Confused. Irritated at the interruption. Whose SUV is parked outside? Officers asked. Oh, he replied casually, that's my friend's car. Quote. Is your friend Tom or Jackie Hawks? Blank stare. No, I don't know who that is. Quote. Then who owns the vehicle? Skyler DeLeon. Quote. That was the moment everything shifted. Because Skyler had told police that the last time he saw Tom and Jackie, they had taken their suitcase of cash, climbed into their SUV, and driven away. But here was the SUV. In Mexico. In the possession of someone tied to Skyler. Which meant one thing. Skyler had seen that vehicle again. And he had lied. Back in Newport Beach, investigators moved quickly. They used Skyler's recorded confession about laundering drug money as leverage. It was enough to bring him into custody. This time, he wasn't leaving. He was arrested on money laundering charges. With Skyler behind bars, police executed a search warrant at the home he shared with Jennifer. Inside, they found items that made their stomachs drop. Laptops, video cameras, personal belongings clearly belonging to Tom and Jackie. Things that would never have been left casually on a boat that was being sold. Things that had been inside the Hawks' private living space. Despite this mounting evidence, Skyler refused to budge. It's a misunderstanding, he insisted. From jail, he held firm. Jennifer echoed him. She went further. She appeared on television, on talk shows, calm, composed, defending her husband. Saying they were just as worried about Tom and Jackie as anyone else. That Skyler had nothing to do with their disappearance. But investigators weren't buying it. They knew he was holding something back. The problem was proving it. Interrogations of Skyler went nowhere. He deflected, repeated himself, played patient. So detectives shifted strategy. If the center won't crack, press the edges. They brought the notary back in. Her name was Kathleen Harris. A respected professional. Clean record. Years of work without incident. She sat down in the interrogation room, nervous but composed. Once again, she repeated the story. Yes, I was there. They signed the paperwork, took the cash, drove off. Quote. But detectives didn't let up. They pressed. They pointed out inconsistencies. They asked about timelines, signatures, ink dates. The pressure mounted. And finally, Kathleen broke. Her voice changed. I've never met Tom or Jackie Hawks, she admitted. The room went silent. She confessed that Skyler DeLeon had paid her in cash, upfront, to backdate documents that had already been signed. She hadn't witnessed the sale. She hadn't seen the Hawks. She had falsified official paperwork. The entire transaction, the neat, orderly parking lot exchange, had just unraveled. Now detectives turned to the other witness. Quote. Alonzo Mason. The friend who had supposedly stood there and watched Tom and Jackie drive away with $500,000. If Kathleen had lied, what would Alonzo say? And more importantly, how deep did this deception really go? Alonzo Mason sat under the harsh white lights of the interrogation room, shoulders tight, hands folded too neatly in front of him. At first, he stuck to the script. They took the cash, got in the SUV, drove off. That's it. Quote. Flat, rehearsed, mechanical. The detectives didn't let him finish. No, one of them said quietly. We just spoke to the notary. She admitted she was never there. She backdated the documents. So we know you're lying. Quote. The air changed. Alonzo's jaw tightened. His eyes dropped. The performance was over. And then, he shut down. Short answers, shrugs, silence. It was obvious. He knew more. But he wasn't going to hand it over freely. The investigators leaned forward. Help us, they told him. Tell us everything. And we'll make sure your sentence is heavily reduced. Quote. It wasn't sympathy. It was leverage. Alonzo was young, early to mid-20s. Impressionable. Not hardened in the way career criminals are. At the time he met Skyler DeLeon, he had been working as a jailer. That's where their connection began. Skyler had been serving time for armed robbery. Somehow, after Skyler got out, the relationship didn't end. They stayed in contact, spent time together, talked. And then, in November 2004, Skyler pulled Alonzo aside for a private conversation. He told him something outrageous. He said he was an international assassin. That people paid him to kill. But only bad people, Skyler claimed. And now, he said, he had a contract. 2 targets. Tom and Jackie Hawks. They're terrible people, Skyler told him. He needed help. And if Alonzo helped carry out the job, he would receive $1 million. $1 million. For a young man without direction, without perspective, that number must have sounded like destiny. Alonzo agreed. On November 15th, the 3 men gathered. Skyler, Alonzo, and a third recruit, John Kennedy, a large, muscular, intimidating figure with long ties to Southern California gangs. The kind of man whose presence alone could silence a room. But they were not there to finalize the sale of a yacht. They were there for a sea trial. A test drive. When Tom and Jackie arrived at the parking lot, something in Tom immediately shifted. Tom had been a longtime probation officer. He knew criminals. He recognized posture, body language, predatory energy. He looked at the 3 men and sensed danger. From the beginning, he hesitated. There was talk of rescheduling. Of maybe not going out that day. Skyler could see it. Tom was uneasy. The plan was unraveling before it even began. So Skyler stepped aside. Give me a minute, he said. He made a call to Jennifer. She wasn't far. Minutes later, she pulled into the parking lot with their 1-year-old daughter in her arms. And the atmosphere changed instantly. Jackie saw the baby first. All suspicion dissolved. Her face softened. She stepped closer. Asked to hold the child. Smiled at Jennifer, who was warm, gentle, unthreatening. The presence of a mother and baby reframed everything. Danger no longer felt present. It felt domestic. Safe. Tom watched Jackie relax. And slowly, he relaxed too. The edge in his posture eased. The probation officer in him quieted. All right, Tom finally said. Today's fine. Quote. The trap had closed. Without them ever realizing it. Let's do the sea trial. Quote. Those were the words that sealed it. The group moved toward the yacht. Well deserved, its name gleaming faintly in the afternoon light, unaware of the weight it was about to carry. Just before boarding, Jennifer paused. Hey guys, she said gently, shifting her baby on her hip, I can't go. The baby's upset. I'll head home. I'll see you when you get back. Quote. It felt ordinary, domestic, reassuring. Tom and Jackie had already committed. Even if there had been a flicker of doubt earlier, it had faded in the warmth of a mother holding her child. They believed this was legitimate. They believed they were safe. So the Hawks boarded the yacht with Skyler DeLeon, Alonzo Mason, and John Kennedy. Lines were untied. Engines hummed to life. The marina shrank behind them. Tom took the helm. He knew the boat. He guided it confidently through the harbor and out. Toward open water. The coastline thinned. Land became a distant strip. Then smaller still. Eventually, they were surrounded by nothing but blue in every direction. That was when Skyler and John approached Tom. Hey, they said casually, we want to see something below deck. Mind showing us? Tom nodded. They descended into the lower level, the bedroom cabin. Upstairs, in the galley, Jackie stood with Alonzo. Then, a crash. A violent commotion from below. Shouting. Struggling. Jackie's head snapped toward the sound. Alonzo already knew what it was. That was the cue. He lunged. Before Jackie could process what was happening, he grabbed her, forced her to the ground. Yanked her arms behind her back. Metal clicked. Handcuffs. Tight. She gasped. Confused. Terrified. Below them, the sounds of Tom fighting back thudded through the floorboards. Moments later, Skyler and John emerged from the cabin. Tom was not with them. They grabbed Jackie, dragged her downstairs. Into the bedroom. Tom lay on the bed. Handcuffed. On his back. Breathing hard. They threw Jackie beside him. For a brief second, husband and wife locked eyes. And Jackie spoke. Why are you doing this to us? She cried. We just met your wife. I just held your baby. Why are you doing this? All we want is to go back to land, to be with our children. To be with our grandchild. Please. Quote. There was no rage in her voice. Just disbelief. Skyler didn't answer her. He turned to Alonzo. Tape their mouths. Tape their eyes. Quote. Alonzo obeyed. As adhesive covered their faces, Skyler went back upstairs and took control of the helm. He steered the yacht farther out. Toward the deepest water he could reach. Below deck, Alonzo and John stood guard. Alonzo would later remember something that haunted him. Tom had managed to lift his hand slightly despite the restraints. He reached for Jackie's fingers. He stroked her hand. It's going to be okay, he whispered through the tape. No matter what happens, we'll be together. Quote. It was the last comfort he could offer her. Above them, the engine slowed. Then stopped. They had reached deep ocean. Skyler called down. Bring them up. Quote. Alonzo and John hauled Tom and Jackie to their feet and marched them up the narrow steps to the deck. Wind whipped around them. The horizon stretched endlessly. Skyler handed them paperwork. Sign. Quote. He forced them to sign the sale documents for the yacht. Then additional papers, granting him access to their bank accounts. Blindfolded. Bound. Surrounded by open ocean. They signed. At one point, Jackie misspelled her own last name in the signature block. Her hands were shaking. Her world was collapsing. And somewhere beneath the vast, indifferent sky, the final stage of the plan was about to begin. Jackie left the S off her last name on the paperwork, not by accident, but as a silent signal that she had signed under duress. Skyler, Alonzo, and John led the couple to the back of the yacht. Tom and Jackie knew, instinctively, that what came next was unimaginable. Jackie pleaded, her voice trembling. Please, let us live. We just want to see our grandchild. Quote. Tom struggled, kicking Skyler hard, but John leapt on him, pinning him down. Both Tom and Jackie were forced to sit back to back, handcuffed together. Alonzo dragged a heavy anchor over to them while Skyler secured their handcuffs to the far end of the chaw-in. The weight of the anchor pulled them toward the railing, every link grinding against the deck. Jackie's head struck the side of the boat with a loud, sickening crack. The water below was dark and endless. Despite their desperate struggles, the chain yanked them overboard. Fully conscious, fully alive, they plummeted into the ocean depths, 3,500 feet down. Skyler laughed, a giddy, horrifying sound, staring at the spot where the couple disappeared. The ocean swallowed their screams, leaving only silence. Meanwhile, Jennifer DeLeon had orchestrated everything from the start. Her appearance with the baby at the dock had lulled the Hawks into false security, ensuring they would board the yacht. During and after the murders, she stayed in constant communication with Skyler, directing the scheme. In the weeks that followed, the killers used the Hawks' own video camera to record their lives, overriding the memories of Tom and Jackie's happiness on the well-deserved sunsets, laughter, sailing, erased, replaced with the gloating of murderers living freely. Justice would eventually catch up. Alonzo received 20 years, a reduced sentence for cooperation. Jennifer DeLeon was sentenced to life without parole. Skyler DeLeon and John Kennedy received death sentences. The well-deserved, once a symbol of freedom and love, became a haunting reminder of betrayal, greed, and the depths to which some will sink to claim wealth and power.